the return that you get per unit of risk for small caps is much lower than return you get per unit for the large caps. Anyway. So just like we do in science, when the data doesn't agree with the predictions of the model, we look for better models. And it turns out there's a better model that looks at things like size and value versus growth of financials that makes a better description. Science always works like that. You know, until Newton, in order to determine what goes on in the solar system, you had Kepler's laws of motion. They were good enough for a lot of purposes, but it didn't really describe what was going on. Then Newton came along with his laws of motion. Basically, gravity is proportional to inverse square of the distance and plus the mass differentials. That worked fine for a lot of stuff. If you wanted to calculate orbit of Jupiter, where Jupiter's orbit, Jupiter is going to be on a given time of the year, no problem. But it had issues with Mercury, because Mercury was too close. And for Newton's, it didn't matter whether you were too close or whether you were a billion miles away. Turns out, Einstein's general relativity is a much better description. In fact, one of the first predictions that came out of his model was if universe works according to relativity, that would explain the weird relative to the Newtonian model orbit of Mercury. And they calculated, it was precise up to 5 significant digits. And back in 1915, 5 significant digits was a lot of computations. Now we know that it's significant up to 15, 20 digits. It's accurate up to 15, 20 digits. And suddenly you have a better model. But all models are useful in certain contexts. If all you want to do is something like cost of capital and you're dealing with similar companies, CAPM is good enough. Okay? But if you're doing this for the purposes of risk allocation in a portfolio, then CAPM is not that good. Then you have to look into other stuff. So all models are useful. At least from the analysis of CAPM, we kind of gained an intuition. The so-called, I call this fundamental law of finance. In order to earn higher return, you have to take higher risk. That came out of CAPM model. And it still applies with all sorts of other models. But we still learn something about it. We learned that unsystematic risk should not be rewarded. And sources of systematic risk may be different, but that's still the case. Now, one of the nice things about beta as a measure of systematic risk exposure. Is that betas of portfolios are weighted average of individual asset betas. So you have asset B, A with beta of A, beta of B, and let's say you have a portfolio where you put 0.3 in A and 0.7 in B. Okay? Then beta of the portfolio is simply times beta of A so it makes beta calculations rather easy. All right, now let's do some problems in chapter 11. If there are any topics that I haven't touched on, we'll talk about it. I'm going to have this. Remember, we have no final exam in this class. Okay, who's going to tell me something about this? The risk premium for a security is based on something risk. Anyone?
The market risk, isn't it?
Basically systematic risk, but if you said market, I would take that too. But generically, it's a systematic risk. The market risk part comes from the CAPM itself. Slope of the security market line is referred to as market risk premium. True or false? True, we just talked about it. Security risk premium is equal to the expected return minus the risk-free rate. And I want other people to contribute, please. True or false? And until now, I haven't asked why, because those are the definitions. It is true, that's the definition of the risk premium. What I expect to make minus what I would have made had I not taken any risk.
I thought that if it was above the line, that's whenever you got the security. Like whenever you drew the chart and everything, I thought if it was above that line, that's whenever you got your security risk premium.
No, that difference is because of underpricing. That has nothing to do with actual taking risk.
Okay.
This is a definition anyway. I have a security, I expect to make 10% on it. And I also know that had I chosen not to take any risk at all, I could have made 4. So the difference between them is the premium that you get for taking that risk. That's the definition of risk premium. Standard deviation of a portfolio is weighted value of the standard deviation of individual securities included in the portfolio. We haven't covered this, but that is patently false because of potential correlations. Again, remember, just because I didn't talk about something here doesn't mean you're not responsible. It's in the book. The return on a risky asset that is anticipated in the future is called the beta. True or false? It is false because the return on a risky asset that is anticipated in the future is called the expected return. Yeah, we just talked about that. The equation that is represented graphically by the security market line is called the capital asset pricing model. True or false? It's true. That's how we got the security market line. A portfolio is an asset that has a beta greater than 1.0. Now, a portfolio can have any beta at all. Beta of portfolio cannot be less than something and nor greater than something.
The lowest beta portfolio, the highest beta portfolio?
Exactly, because beta of the portfolio is the weighted average of individual portfolios, individual betas. And since weights add up to 1, it cannot be lower than the minimum beta, and it cannot be higher than the highest beta. So in this sense, the portfolio cannot be riskier than the riskiest asset in the portfolio. And portfolio could not be safer than the safest asset in the portfolio. Okay, the security market line states the investors are compensated for which of the following? What do you think?
Option A.
You're basically saying they're not compensated for diversifiable risk. And you would be correct. Since it's diversifiable, there's no reason for me to pay a premium for that. Obviously, they're compensated for market risk, which is the measure of systematic risk, and you're also compensated for the risk-free rate.